Perhaps Iowa's most highly regarded commitment for its 2023 class, Kendrick Raphael, commits to Iowa football. More on the Florida running back's commitment in a moment, plus why I believe this is a fantastic get for Ladell Betts and Kirk Ferentz, and it actually has very little to do with his film. But first, a reminder to hit that like button on this video. If you've not already subscribed, please do that. I'll give you a moment to hit the like button. Thank you very much. Also want to thank our sponsor for the video, Ascent Nutrition, and their pesticide-free coffee. Did you know that most name brand coffees do contain pesticides? Most people don't know that. They also contain harmful molds and mycotoxins, but with Ascent Nutrition, their pure, amazing tasting coffee is free of all those contaminants and those pesticides. Purchase through the link in the description below. You're supporting this channel here from the Hawkeye of the Storm and former University of Iowa graduate Lance Shuttler, and you will get some amazing, pure, clean-tasting coffee that's good for your health. So the news today, or I guess this broke actually last night as we're recording this on the 14th, Tuesday morning, Kendrick Raphael committing to be an Iowa Hawkeye, and this is, by many websites, Iowa's highest-rated recruit so far, commitment for that 2023 class. Now, I've been very outspoken about how highly I regard quarterback Marco Lainez. I believe Marco gives Iowa hope at the quarterback position moving forward. Now, again, that's a ways down the road. But Kendrick, man, this is a really good get for Ladell Betts and Kirk Ferentz. And let's just talk about that for a moment. Ladell Betts, what he has done since he's been here. I've talked in the past how I've kind of grown tired of the Akram Wadley, LaShawn Daniels prototypes. I'm not saying anything against those individuals as players or even people, but as far as their style, I think Iowa does well to go after the tweeners. You know, your Melvin Gordon types, your Monty Balls. Now, you may say, well, you're stating the obvious. Sure. Iowa's had one-dimensional running backs for the most part. Even Tyler Goodson. Tyler was great, but he didn't really produce a ton of yards after contact. I think we can all agree on that. A guy like Kendrick Raphael, you pair him with a guy like Jazian Patterson, or even LaShawn Williams, who's, I think, sort of that tweener style back as well. I've talked highly about Caleb Johnson, who's coming in during the 2023 class. Now, I know he's more of a bull, but he reminds me more of Braylon Allen at Wisconsin. I do like what Iowa was doing. And Jazian Patterson, remember when he committed, if I'm not mistaken, he was a 4-star at Deerfield Beach. Deerfield had some weird issues with the coaching staff. He slipped down to 3-star status. Caleb Johnson, actually, his stock vaulted up. And now you have Kendrick Raphael. So you could argue that in these last two classes, 22 and 23, Ladell Betts has helped to land 3 4-star running backs, and they all have a similar style, which I think is, again, good for Iowa. Kendrick Raphael, you watch him on tape. He's got the ability to break tackles. He seems to have a really solid center of gravity. He possesses some nice jump cut moves. He also lines up as a fullback at times at Naples High School, and they run him primarily as a blocker, which is interesting, and that would at least make me believe that he's a willing blocker, and that would make me think that, hey, he's probably going to have an opportunity. Running back is the easiest position on the field to play early. So, you know, any running back who's coming here as a true freshman has that opportunity, especially with injuries and whatnot, but it's actually the easiest position to learn. And so now you have a guy who has shown himself to be a willing blocker. Now, who knows what this 23 team will look like? I don't expect Gavin Williams or LaShawn Williams to burst on the scene and end up in the NFL next year. But injuries happen, transfers happen. And Kendrick Raphael, given the fact that he's a big body, he's 5'11", 190, so he's not huge, but that's your prototypical running back size. I believe we've talked about this in the past. Sean Green was about 190 pounds coming out of high school. Now, he got a lot bigger, certainly played at a JUCO level and got bigger, but Kendrick Raphael has an opportunity to play early because of his willingness to block, and certainly his vision. His vision's great. You watch him on tape, albeit against high school competition. Now, he does compete at the 6A level, which is pretty high. Florida, I believe, 8A is the highest level of football competition down in the state of Florida. And again, Kendrick Raphael from the Naples area and rated as a 4-star by both Rivals and 247 Sports. His other Power 5 offers, this is an interesting list, and this is what I want to get to as far as why I feel so good about this commitment. Without even looking at the tape, and I did look at quite a bit of tape here last night and this morning from Kendrick, but looking at his other Power 5 offers, you got Boston College, BYU, Duke, Indiana, Iowa State, Louisville, Minnesota, North Carolina State, Vanderbilt, and West Virginia. So a very solid list, this according to Rivals. But here's why I think this is such a fantastic get for Ladell Betts and Kirk Ferentz. Let's take a look at 4 of these schools specifically and what makes these 4 schools unique. Now, you're going to see, I've popped up these 4 schools, the different players that these schools specifically have produced at running back that have ended up being either highly productive college players or highly productive NFL players. We start with Boston College. You may think, well, Boston College isn't a power. Well, Boston College produced A.J. Dillon, who has carved himself a tremendous niche up at Green Bay alongside Aaron Donald. Boston College, now I know some of these coaching staffs may have changed in recent years slightly, but Boston College has somewhat a reputation of selecting running backs that end up being NFL players. Indiana, how about Jordan Howard, Tevin Coleman? Both of those guys came from the Hoosiers. Again, Indiana by no means a football power, but they have known how to evaluate running backs in the past. Iowa State, clearly. David Montgomery, Breece Hall. I think it's safe to say if you're recruiting a guy that Iowa State has offered, you're probably doing yourself well. Minnesota, boy, we talk about depth. Mo Ibrahim last year, Kai Thomas, Trey Potts, Marquise Irving. They had so many injuries, and yet all 4 of those guys produced at a high level. Mo Ibrahim's coming back for another year. But all 4 of these schools have produced running backs that have either been highly productive at the college level or have moved on and had productive NFL careers. And so my point is the fact that Iowa was able to land a 4-star kid from Florida that all 4 of these schools offered. That's a good sign. All right. Regardless of when they were offered, have there been running backs that have committed? A couple of these schools have had running backs for the 23 class already commit, which would certainly diffuse a guy like Raphael from committing potentially. But it doesn't matter. These guys, these teams offered Raphael, and that's a good sign for Iowa. Now, what does this mean moving forward for the class of 2023? What a pairing with Marco Lainez and now Kendrick Raphael. Certainly, Iowa's going to have more work to do in that 23 class, but as far as skill position talent, that's a positive. We know they lost out on Mac Markway. We know Caden Proctor is a priority. So they have struggled to some extent at tight end and at wide receiver. They lost out on Kai Black to Iowa State. We saw they lost out on Jamison Patton as well, who's a safety. But I think the Kai Black one is more significant. They lose out on Kai Black to Iowa State. They also lost out on Kyler Casper to Oregon. And I mentioned the Mac Markway loss to LSU. So they struggled to an extent with skill position players in the 23 class at wide receiver and tight end. But getting Raphael, landing Lainez, those are 2 huge pieces to that offense. Now you land Caden Proctor, and I think that helps immensely. Maybe not the skill position guy Iowa expected. Perhaps people expected Kyler Casper or Mac Markway. But boy, I'll take Raphael in a heartbeat. Now, will all 3 running backs from this class and next class, those 3 guys, Patterson, Johnson, and Raphael, all be here in 3 to 4 years? The portal and with early declarations of the NFL draft, probably not. But boy, Ladell Betts doing work. I love what he's doing on the recruiting trail. Appreciate you tuning in for another edition of the show. A reminder to hit that like and subscribe button. If you want to donate to the show, you certainly can do that as well. Please hit the like button. That helps us in the algorithm. I will talk to you soon.